Let's move on. Trump says he's reached a deal with China's Xi. Here's what to know.
From President Trump in his meeting in China, he says he reached a temporary truce in his trade war. That after meeting with China's Xi Jinping last evening. But before the meeting, the president also made an announcement about nuclear weapons, an announcement that could be seen as a provocation. Ed O'Keefe is at the White House covering it all for us. Ed, good morning. A lot of questions here.
There sure are, Tony. The president's on his way back here, but that meeting with Xi Jinping was the grand finale and main event of the president's week-long trip to Asia. The leaders of the two largest economies talked for over an hour and 40 minutes. The president says the U.S. can sign a trade deal with China, quote, very soon, after they settled some key issues.
Trump went to China before you. This is true. But hopefully his advocacy for the Chinese century of prosperity is going to allow me to have a more comfortable trip in the glorious nation of the People's Republic of China. Okay? That makes me happy. He did this in Korea, but in his heart, he was in China. This news channel called you a Muslim extremist. Look at the timestamp, 1246.
Really on the intersection of Muslim extremism, including one podcaster known as Hasan Piker, which Sliwa and Cuomo have tried to make an issue of. He said, quote unquote, America deserved 9/11.
Like, can you imagine having to hear this from probably a right-winger? Like, I'm a Muslim extremist, dude. You have to be a fucking psychopath. They say this shit about Ilhan Omar, too. Myself, Zohran Mamdani, Ilhan Omar are some of the most progressive, visible politicians or political advocates in the country, whether it be uncompromising values in defense for trans people or advancing an agenda that revolves around uplifting the material conditions of all American workers, okay? Defending Medicare for all, defending free college. And yet these fucking people who are to my right socially have the audacity to turn around and fucking say that I'm a Muslim extremist. This is Islamophobia. That's what it is, okay? That's what it is. It's just racism. It's just rank racism. There's no other way to fucking go about it, right? This is the exact same position on every slop tuber op as well, something to consider. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. A lot of fucking slop tubers do this shit too, where they go, oh, this guy is a fucking Muslim extremist. The fuck do you mean, brother? I've seen the way you talk about other marginalized identities. The fuck are you talking about? I'm the Muslim extremist. You're the fucking extremist. It's crazy. Anyway, I don't want to fucking talk about this any longer because goddamn, it just gets so fucking annoying to have to relitigate this shit over and over again. We're moving on. We're talking about American century of humiliation versus Chinese century of prosperity. Okay?
And we're going to have a very successful meeting, I have no doubt.
In their first face-to-face meeting since 2019, President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping greeted each other warmly as they met for much-anticipated trade talks.
It's a great honor to be with a friend of mine.
After imposing retaliatory tariffs for the last 6 months, Trump now says they have a deal.
We'll talk about Prince Andrew as well.
Pretty soon.
We have a deal. Now, every year we'll renegotiate the deal, but I think the deal will go on for a long time.
Yeah, U.S.-China trade deal, baby. I love this, okay? I love this. Trump is a fake demon, okay? 100%. But it's really funny because this is the most Trumpian move. This is so perfectly Trump. Fuck something up and then put the pieces back together haphazardly. The art of the deal, the art of the steal, okay? He fucked it up. Then he postured. He postured for months like he was a real demon, okay? Only to turn around and be like, I was just kidding. I'm a fake demon, okay? I'm a fake demon. Please, let's fix this. Please, let's fix this. And now his dumb fuck followers will turn around and unironically act as though he actually fucking solved something. Yeah, he solved something he broke. How is this good? How is this a good thing? It doesn't make any sense to me that there are so many Americans that literally watch this shit unfold and think, oh, he's so brilliant. He goes into a room and he starts shitting on the walls. You say, what the fuck are you doing? You're shitting on the walls and you're smearing your dookie on the walls. He then stops smearing dookie on the walls and then expects you to thank him. It's like, okay, but before you entered the room, there were no dookie on the walls. You put the dookie on the fucking wall. Clean the dookie. It blows my mind. It blows my fucking mind, dude. He goes, hey, listen, I could have kept smearing more shit on the walls, but I stopped. I fixed it. I fixed it. No, you broke it, and then you didn't fix shit. It's still worse than before you came in.
Nothing is official yet. Trump says the U.S. will reduce tariffs on Chinese goods by 10% as China works to reduce the flow of illegal fentanyl.
This is the best one. He's like, yeah, we did this for fentanyl. That was a fake reason anyway. And now the fake reason is what? Going to be solved? Okay, got it.
And Trump says China will resume buying American soybeans and ease its limits on the export of rare earth minerals needed to make batteries and other key technology.
There's no roadblock at all on rare earth. That will hopefully disappear from our vocabulary for a little while.
According to Chinese state media, Xi agreed to reach a consensus on important economic and trade issues. The president says he plans to go to China in April as the two leaders continue to mend a volatile relationship.
On the scale of from 0 to 10, with 10 being the best, I would say the meeting was a 12. Okay, I think it was a 12. I think very importantly, just the whole relationship is very, very important.
Very interesting, Ed. But before you go, on the nuclear question, just before the meeting, Trump said he was directing the Pentagon to resume testing nuclear weapons. What more can you tell us on that?
Yeah, the president said in a social media post that he wants to resume those tests on a, quote, equal basis with Russia and China. That would be a major shift since the U.S. hasn't carried out such tests since the early 1990s. The president offered no details about the timing of the specific tests by other countries he was referring to. Also on this trip, the president said his administration is going to share technology that will allow South Korea to build a nuclear-powered submarine over here in the U.S. in Philadelphia. The South Koreans want to do so to defend the waters around the Korean peninsula. So it's a big military win for the Koreans and a potential economic boost for the United States. Tony?
All right, Ed, thank you very much.
It's the latest twist in the US-China trading relationship, but it's worth taking stock of just how we got here. This is what Donald Trump's been up to since coming into power the second time round. You can see that within months of coming into office, he was ramping up tariffs on China, first with that 10% broad-based tariff to punish them for their role in the fentanyl trade. That was then increased to 20%. And by spring, you can see things had reached boiling point, a tit-for-tat trade war. This was in the midst of Liberation Day. You might remember when Trump announced tariffs on countries across the world. China hit back. The US tariff was hitting about 145%. Both countries effectively deciding to stop trading with each other. Tempers calmed. Behind the scenes, both sides have been trying to figure out a long-lasting deal. But then at the beginning of the month, well, things flared up again. China announced export controls on rare earth elements that are critical for modern-day manufacturing. Trump threatened them with an additional 100% tariff. Well, we've heard today that again, things have calmed down, talks have gone well, and Trump actually announced that he would reduce that 20% fentanyl tariff to 10%. So that's where we're at now. But as you can see, the state of things, the average tariffs are still higher than they were at the beginning of the year. And we can see how the new baseline has shifted in this next chart as well, how the new normal has shifted. In his first presidency, Trump was very much focused on targeted tariffs on things like electricals, solar panels, and steel. These are kind of the amount of goods that are under the purview of tariffs. Biden didn't really change things too much, but nor did he row back. And then second time round, where you can see Trump has ratcheted things up. Now everything is subject to a tariff. We're at 100%. When we talk about tariffs, as we know, this isn't all about tariffs. It's also about export controls. And here, rare earth elements is something, as I mentioned, China is really weaponizing. The US, for their part, can control computer chips and the export of computer chips to China, particularly NVIDIA's AI chips.
Yeah. By the way, there was one quote that I read of Xi Jinping giving up TikTok and using that as like a leverage point in the deal. And he literally said, I didn't care much for TikTok. It felt like digital opiates for me. Which is funny because that's what I've said about TikTok in terms of like how it entered the American marketplace. He straight up, he was like, I don't really care much for TikTok. It always struck me as digital opiates, which is, it's true. And not only is it true, but what's interesting about it is that like they don't have it in China. That's what I've always pointed to with respect to TikTok, where I was like, they quite literally see TikTok. Here it is. If they thought TikTok was a useful tool, they would have the same exact thing in China. But Douyin is far more controlled. Okay. And I think you will see more and more people come to terms with the walled garden approach or the Chinese firewall, the great digital firewall, as a necessary thing. The worse our AI-induced hallucinating masses get due to unlimited amounts of internet. But yeah, here he said it right here. The concession was TikTok. The quiet calculation, balancing pressure with appeasement, now forms the bedrock of China's strategy. In the tense lead up to trade talks in Madrid this September, Xi knew he needed to offer a concession to get what he truly wanted. Summits with Trump to hash out issues one-on-one. The concession was TikTok. For Trump, forcing the sale of the high-profile app was a populist victory framed around national security. For Xi, however, the app was a low-cost bargaining chip. He had privately dismissed it as spiritual opium, according to the people close to Beijing, and viewed it as an easy sacrifice to secure the continued dialogue China needed. As a result, Xi set the stage for a series of summits with Trump. This happened already. After the meeting next week in South Korea, Beijing hopes to arrange a Trump visit to China early next year, and finally a Xi trip to the U.S. in late 2026. I'm confused. Are you defending the firewall? What's your take on it? I unironically think that the Chinese firewall that was developed was presented as a way to keep the Chinese masses from they like the way that it was presented in the West was like, oh, this is a bad thing. And it's understandable. We have a much more social libertarian perspective when it comes to free flowing information and things of that nature here in the West. And I agree with that in principle. But for many years, it was talked about as though like the firewall was created to silence and oppress the Chinese masses. And it turns out it was actually to keep us out because we are poisonous. I mean, look to every other country where they wear fucking MAGA hats when they are doing protests, right-wing protests. Look to every other country that gets their notes from our fascists. Even countries with historic fascist movements have dropped their own historic fascist movements for the American Burger Reich style fascism. Clearly, we are fucking brain poison. Can't we find a middle ground that isn't censorship while not having an Elon Grokpedia? If it's one or the other, I think the other might be better. Listen. I'm in America. I love free speech and I will defend it. Okay. But I don't think there is a middle ground. I don't think there is a middle ground is my point. The firewall was set in place before MAGA, though, wasn't it? Yes. Absolutely. It was. I think initially it was so that there wasn't a lot of intervention. But nowadays, as people's attitudes change about American brain poison manifesting all around the world, people are coming to that reality that potentially this initial attempt at making sure that American brain poison couldn't enter the Chinese digital airwaves could have possibly been a good idea. I don't know. I'm so black-pilled. I read this long article about the literacy rates plummeting in the United States of America and how like throughout history, it was a Baffler magazine article. It was really good. And it fucking blackpilled me. It's so hard. Talking about the oratory tradition initially, and then like the invention of the printing press, and how like people's way of thinking changed as a consequence of how we disseminated information in the past, before the printing press, or before writing in general, before literacy in general was a thing. We just kind of passed information along, and we thought differently about the world. And we are now going back to that. Yeah, here it is. The addictive nature of smartphones is a very serious problem contributing to the decline of literacy, but the phones exist in a social context and not the other way around. And this goes